3 years. It had been 3 long years since I last saw Evan. 3 years since I had let him walk away while pretending I didn't care. Every night since then, I told myself I had done the right thing. I buried myself in work, in meetings, in numbers, in cold walls and long hours. I became the man people feared, focused, powerful, unshakable. But deep inside, I was nothing but noise. The nights were the hardest. The world grew too quiet, and my thoughts too loud. I would lie in bed and still feel the ghost of his warmth beside me. Hear his soft laugh in my mind. Remember the way his eyes shone when he looked at me like I was the only person who existed. Then morning would come, and I'd wear my mask again. The mask of Adrian Cross, CEO, untouchable and calm. That night started like every other. My office still lit long after midnight, papers spread across the desk, city lights bleeding through the glass wall behind me. The only sound was the steady ticking of the clock and the soft hum of the air conditioner. I reached for my phone just to check the time. That was when it buzzed. One new message. When I saw the name on the screen, my hand stopped. Evan Taylor. My heart gave a small, sharp kick inside my chest. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I thought it had to be a mistake, or maybe my tired brain playing tricks on me. But the name was there, clear and bright against the dark screen. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The hospital bill for my son is $4,500. The words didn't make sense at first. I read them once, twice, again. My son. My throat closed. My heart started to pound so hard I could hear it in my ears. He had a child. Evan had a child. And then, a single thought hit me so hard it nearly crushed me. Was it mine? I stared at the message until my vision blurred. I wanted to believe it was a wrong number. Maybe he meant to text someone else. But my mind fought against that hope. Deep down, something inside me already knew. I felt heat rise through my body, anger and fear mixing until I couldn't tell them apart. I had lost him once. Had I also lost a child I never knew about? Before I could think, my thumbs were moving. You had my child? My fingers hovered above the screen, trembling. The message looked too sharp, too desperate, but I pressed send anyway. Seconds felt like hours. I waited for the typing dots to appear. Nothing came. The silence pressed against me until I couldn't stand it. My chest ached, my breath shallow. 1,000 pictures ran through my mind. Evan holding a baby that looked like him, or worse, like me. A small boy with my eyes, my hair, calling someone else Dad. No, I couldn't let that be real. I stood up so fast the chair rolled back and hit the wall. Mark! I shouted. My voice echoed off the glass. Within seconds, my driver appeared at the door, startled. Sir, get the car ready. Now. He didn't ask questions. He never did. He hurried away, leaving me alone with the storm roaring inside me. I looked back at the phone. The message was still open, the screen glowing faintly in the dark office. My pulse hammered in my neck as I typed again. Stay where you are. I'm coming to get both of you. I hit send before I could stop myself. The elevator ride felt endless. My reflection stared back at me from the polished metal walls. Cold eyes, tight jaw, hands clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. 3 years ago, I had told him to leave. I thought I was protecting him from the chaos of my life, from the media, from the ruthless people around me. I thought distance would keep him safe. But now I wondered if I had only broken something that could never be fixed. Outside, the night air hit me like ice. The city lights glittered like distant stars, and the sound of rain began to patter softly against the pavement. My black car waited by the curb, engine humming, headlights slicing through the dark. Mark opened the door for me. Where to, sir? I stared at the address in the message, the hospital name, the street, everything. My hand tightened around the phone. Here, I said, showing him the screen. Drive fast. The car rolled forward, smooth and silent. I leaned back against the seat, trying to calm my racing thoughts, but every image in my mind was Evan. His gentle smile, the way he used to fall asleep against my shoulder, his voice whispering my name in the dark. How could he hide this from me? Why didn't he tell me? Then another thought struck me, softer, almost breaking me. What if he tried, and I didn't listen? The rain grew heavier, streaking across the windows like silver threads. Streetlights blurred as we sped through the city. I watched them pass, one after another, each one pulling me closer to the truth I wasn't ready for. By the time we reached the hospital, my pulse felt like thunder in my chest. I told Mark to wait outside and stepped into the cold, wet air. The building loomed tall and white, its glass doors glowing under the rain. I hesitated for just a second. My shoes clicked softly against the floor as I walked inside. The scent of antiseptic hit me, sharp and clean, mixed with something faintly metallic. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile that faded when she saw my face. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm looking for Evan Taylor," I said, my voice rough. "He's here with his son." She typed quickly, checked her screen, and pointed toward the pediatric wing. "Second floor, room 213. "Thank you." I didn't wait for the elevator. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart pounding louder with each step. The hallways were quiet, the lights dim. My wet shoes left small prints on the floor. When I reached the door, I stopped. My hand hovered over the handle. I could hear soft voices inside. Evan's, calm and gentle, and a smaller voice, light and sleepy. For a moment, I couldn't move. Every muscle in my body froze. I pressed my forehead against the cold wood and closed my eyes. "He's here. He's really here." The small voice inside laughed. A sound so pure it made my chest ache. Then I heard Evan speak, low and soft. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. Papa's here. Papa." The words sliced through me. I swallowed hard, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The room was small and warm, lit by a single lamp near the bed. Evan sat beside a little boy who couldn't be older than 3. His tiny hand rested in Evan's, and his lashes brushed his cheeks as he slept. Evan looked up. The moment our eyes met, everything stopped. He froze, his lips parting slightly. His face was pale, his eyes wide, filled with disbelief and fear and something else. Something I couldn't name. "Adrian," he whispered. My name fell from his lips like a memory. My gaze dropped to the boy. Dark hair, pale skin, and when his eyes fluttered open for a second, I saw them gray just like mine. I took a shaky breath. My throat felt tight. "He's mine, isn't he?" Evan didn't answer. His lips trembled. He pulled the blanket higher around the boy, his movements slow, protective. I stepped closer, every part of me shaking though I tried to hide it. "Evan, answer me." His eyes glistened. "You shouldn't be here." "I should have been here 3 years ago," I said, my voice breaking. "You had my child, and you didn't tell me?" Tears slipped down his cheeks, quick and silent. "You told me to leave, remember? You said you didn't want a family. You made me believe I wasn't enough." His words hit me like a slap. I remembered that day. My anger, my pride, my fear of weakness. I thought I was protecting him from my world, from me. Instead, I destroyed everything. The little boy stirred, letting out a small sigh. Evan gently brushed his hair back. "Please," he whispered. "Don't wake him." I looked at them. Evan's hand resting over the child's, the soft glow of the lamp touching both their faces. They looked like a picture I had lost long ago, one I could never replace. I swallowed hard. "Pack your things," I said quietly. "Both of you are coming with me." Evan shook his head, panic flashing in his eyes. "You can't just walk back in and take over, Adrian." "I'm not asking," I said, though my voice was softer now. "I'm done letting you walk away. I'm done missing everything that matters." He stared at me for a long moment, tears still glimmering on his lashes. Then he turned back to the boy and kissed his forehead. I stood there, torn between guilt and hope, between anger and love, my heart beating so loud it drowned out the rain outside. When I finally stepped out of the hospital, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, shining under the streetlights. My car waited by the curb, headlights cutting through the mist. I took one last look at the glowing window on the second floor. Somewhere behind it, Evan was still holding our child. My hands clenched at my sides. "I'm not losing you again," I whispered to the night. Then I got into the car. The engine roared to life, and the headlights sliced through the darkness as we drove away, toward a truth that would change everything forever. The drive back to the hospital felt endless. Even after I had seen them, I still could not calm the storm inside me. Evan's face haunted me. The way his eyes widened when he saw me, the way he held the child so tightly, as if I might take him away that very moment. Now I was walking down the white hallway again, each step echoing off the walls. My hands were shoved into my coat pockets to stop them from shaking. My chest felt tight. Every breath I took burned a little. When I reached the door of his room, I stopped. The small window showed the soft light inside. I could see him sitting by the bed, holding the boy close, humming something under his breath. The sound of his voice drifted faintly through the glass. I pushed the door open. Evan looked up. His eyes locked on mine, and the air between us froze. He didn't speak, and neither did I. The sound of the heart monitor filled the silence. The boy stirred, turning slightly. I stepped closer. He had a round, sweet face, dark lashes, and a little frown that looked too familiar. My stomach twisted. "He's mine, isn't he?" I asked. My voice was low, shaking, more a plea than a question. Evan's arms tightened around the boy. "You shouldn't be here, Adrian." The sound of my name on his lips hit something deep inside me. "Answer me," I said. "I deserve to know." "You deserved to listen 3 years ago," he whispered. "But you pushed me away before I could say a word." The anger I had been holding burst out. "You left without telling me you were pregnant." His eyes flashed. "You told me we were done. You said you didn't want the weight of love slowing you down. What was I supposed to do? Beg you to care?" The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I took another step toward him. "You should have told me." "I tried." His voice cracked. "You blocked my number, changed your address, and disappeared into your world of meetings and headlines. I had no one, Adrian. I raised him alone." The words hit like stones. My anger fell away, leaving only guilt. I looked at the boy again, at his tiny fingers curled against Evan's shirt, and my throat closed. "I would have been there," I whispered. "If I had known, I would have." Evan's eyes filled with tears. "You don't get to say that now." The boy woke suddenly, his soft brown eyes blinking open. He looked from Evan to me, confusion crossing his face. Evan forced a smile and stroked his hair. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But the child sat up and rubbed his eyes. "Papa?" he said in a sleepy voice. The word hit me like lightning. "Papa." Evan swallowed hard, still holding him close. The boy looked at me curiously. "Who's that?" For a moment I couldn't speak. My heart thudded against my ribs. I crouched down so I wouldn't seem so tall or frightening. "I'm a friend of your papa's," I said softly. He studied me, his small head tilted. Then, without warning, he smiled. A wide, innocent smile that made my chest ache. It was my smile. He yawned, leaned against Evan again, and drifted back to sleep. Evan's eyes lifted to mine, red and tired. "Please," he whispered. "Don't wake him again." I stood slowly. The urge to hold both of them was almost painful. "Why didn't you tell me his name?" I asked quietly. Evan hesitated. "Leo," he said at last. "His name is Leo." "Leo." The word felt like sunlight after years of darkness. I nodded, my jaw tight. "He deserves more than this tiny hospital room. You both do. Come home with me." Evan's head snapped up. "No. You can't keep living like this, Evan. Let me help. Let me." "You think you can fix everything with money?" His voice trembled, half anger, half pain. "You can't buy the years you missed. You can't buy trust." "I'm not trying to buy anything," I said. "I just want to be near you." Near him. He shook his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I don't know if I can let you back in. I spent 3 years learning to stand without you." I took a slow breath and reached out. My hand stopped halfway between us, not daring to touch him. "I know I broke us," I said softly. But please don't punish him for my mistakes. He looked at my hand, then back at my face. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time I saw how tired he really was. Dark circles under his eyes, the weight of sleepless nights and endless worry. I wanted to pull him into my arms and promise he'd never have to carry it alone again. But I didn't move. I only said, "Let me drive you home, both of you, just for tonight." He wiped his cheeks quickly. "It's late. Leo needs rest." "He can sleep in the car," I said. "I'll take you somewhere safe." Evan's voice broke. "Safe? Adrian, being with you was never safe." I closed my eyes, the truth of his words cutting deep. When I opened them, I met his gaze and let him see everything. My regret, my longing, the quiet ache that never stopped. "I'm not losing you again," I said. My voice was low, almost a whisper, but I meant every word. He looked away, staring at the floor. The clock ticked softly between us. Finally, he spoke, his tone tired but gentle. "You should go home, Adrian. You've done enough for tonight." I wanted to argue, to shout, to beg, but the sight of Leo sleeping peacefully made me stay silent. I only nodded. "I'll come back in the morning." Evan didn't answer. He just turned back to the bed and brushed his fingers through Leo's hair. I lingered for a moment longer, watching them. They looked so perfect together. Evan's arms around the child, the rise and fall of their breathing in rhythm. It was everything I never knew I wanted until it was too late. Outside, the rain had started again, light and cold. I stood under the awning, watching the drops scatter on the pavement. My reflection in the wet glass doors looked like a stranger. Tired, wet, and hurting. Mark opened the car door for me, but I didn't get in right away. I looked up at the hospital window where I knew they were. A soft glow still came from the lamp inside. I whispered to myself, "I'll fix this. I don't care how long it takes." When I finally slid into the seat, Mark glanced at me through the mirror. "Everything all right, sir?" I gave a small, humorless laugh. "No," I said, "but it will be." The car pulled away. Raindrops raced down the glass like tiny rivers. My thoughts wouldn't stop spinning. Evan's tearful face, Leo's sleepy voice calling him Papa, that bright little smile that looked so much like mine. How had I ever thought I could live without them? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office again, staring at the city lights until dawn. Every few minutes, I looked at my phone, hoping for a message that never came. When the sun finally rose, I made a decision. If Evan wouldn't come to me, I would go to him again. Not as the cold CEO he hated, but as the man who once loved him and still did. I looked down at the photo I had taken years ago, still hidden in my drawer. Evan smiling on a windy day, his hair messy, sunlight in his eyes. I traced the edge of the picture with my thumb and whispered, "I'm coming back for you. Both of you." Later that morning, I returned to the hospital with breakfast, toys, and a small blue jacket that looked like it would fit Leo. The nurse at the desk smiled nervously when she saw me. "You're here early, Mr. Cross." "I couldn't sleep," I said simply. When I reached the door, I knocked lightly. No answer. I pushed it open and found the room empty. The bed was neatly made, the lamp turned off. My breath caught. I hurried to the nurse's station. "Where's Evan Taylor?" She checked her notes. "He checked out an hour ago. Said he didn't need to stay any longer." I stood there, stunned. They were gone. As I walked out into the bright morning, I felt the same hollow pain that had lived inside me for 3 years. But this time I wasn't giving up. Evan could run, but I would find him. I would make him see that I wasn't the man who hurt him anymore. I would fight for Leo, for the family I almost destroyed. I looked out at the city spread before me, sunlight catching on the wet streets. My hands curled into fists. "I'm not losing you again," I said aloud, every word a vow. And with that, I walked toward my car, toward the road that would lead me back to them. When I told Evan that moving into my penthouse was only temporary, I lied to myself. I said it was to help him with Leo's bills, to keep them safe until the hospital debt was cleared. But deep down, I just wanted them close. I wanted to see Leo's small smile every morning, and I wanted to hear Evan's quiet laugh again. The one I used to wake up to before everything fell apart. The first morning they arrived, my world felt different. The air smelled like baby soap and pancakes instead of coffee and cold paper. Leo ran around the living room, his tiny feet making soft thumps on the marble floor. Evan tried to stop him, but Leo only giggled harder, hiding behind the couch. Couldn't look away. Let him run, I said, trying to sound calm. The floor is clean. Evan gave me that old look, half warning, half amused. You've never been around a child before, have you? No, I admitted. But I'm learning fast. That became my promise for the days that followed. I would learn fast. Every morning I made Leo's milk. I learned how to tie his tiny shoes and how to make silly faces that made him laugh so hard he'd hiccup. When he called me Mr. Adrian, at first, something in my chest hurt. But when he slipped once and called me Daddy, my heart nearly stopped. I didn't correct him. Couldn't. At night, after Leo was asleep, the house grew too quiet. Evan washed dishes in the kitchen, humming softly. I often found myself standing in the doorway, just watching him. His hair had grown longer, brushing the side of his neck. His hands moved slowly, carefully, like every small thing mattered. I used to think I'd forgotten that sound, his hum, but hearing it again made my chest warm and heavy all at once. One night, I walked into the kitchen and reached for a plate just as he did. Our fingers brushed. It was such a small touch, but my whole arm went still. Evan froze too. His eyes met mine, wide and uncertain. The plate trembled between us. You shouldn't look at me like that, Adrian, he said softly. My voice came out low, rough. Then stopped looking back. The air between us felt hot even though the room was cold. Neither of us moved for a long moment. I wanted to reach out, to pull him close and ask why he still looked at me like that. Like he wanted to forgive me but didn't know how. Then Leo's soft cry broke the silence. Evan stepped back, grabbing the plate quickly. I'll check on him, he said, escaping before I could speak. That was how it went for days. I'd watch him, he'd keep his distance. The space between us was full of everything we hadn't said. But it wasn't just the silence that made me ache. It was the memories that came with every small thing. His laugh when I burned toast, his eyes when Leo hugged me for the first time, the way he bit his lip whenever he was hiding a smile. One evening, rain poured outside. Leo fell asleep early. His small body curled under a blanket on the couch. The sound of the rain made the penthouse feel softer somehow. Evan stood by the counter drying dishes. I walked over before I could stop myself. Evan, I said quietly. He didn't turn around. You should rest, Adrian. It's late. I can't. I stepped closer. Not when you're right here. His hands stopped moving. The towel dropped to the counter. I could see the way his shoulders shook slightly when he breathed. I wanted to reach out to turn him around, but I was scared he'd pull away again. When he finally faced me, his eyes looked tired but full of something I couldn't name. You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be the same, he whispered. My throat tightened. I know, I said, but I can't pretend I don't still care. About you, about Leo, about what we lost. Evan looked away, blinking fast. You hurt me, Adrian. You said things I can't forget. I remember, I said softly, and I remember how much I hated myself after you left. I can't erase it, but tell me how to make it right. The rain grew louder outside. Evan's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought he'd let me hold him, but he shook his head and turned back to the sink. Just be here, he whispered. For Leo. That's all I can promise right now. I nodded slowly. Then I'll start there. The rest of the night passed quietly. I sat on the couch beside Leo watching him sleep. He had my eyes, my dark hair, even the same small frown when he dreamed. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have been here from the start. From the kitchen, I heard Evan's soft footsteps. He paused behind me, then sighed. A moment later, a blanket covered my shoulders. His fingers brushed my neck for just a second before he walked away again. That single touch kept me warm through the night. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of eggs and toast. Evan was cooking, Leo sitting on the counter, swinging his little legs. It looked so perfect that I didn't want to move. Leo saw me and shouted, "Daddy!" before jumping into my arms. Evan's face turned red, but he didn't correct him this time. "Morning," I said, smiling. "Morning," Evan replied quietly. His voice was softer than before, less guarded. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. That night, when Leo was asleep again, Evan and I sat on the balcony, watching the city lights. The air was cool, the rain finally gone. For the first time in 3 years, we talked about small things. Leo's favorite cartoon, the food he liked, how hard it had been for Evan to raise him alone. I listened to every word, guilt twisting in my stomach. When Evan laughed softly at something I said, I felt something break inside me. The walls I had built to protect myself. I looked at him and said quietly, "I missed this. I missed you." He met my eyes, his lips parting slightly. The silence stretched again, heavy but not painful this time. Then he said, "Don't make promises you can't keep, Adrian." "I'll keep this one," I whispered. "You and Leo, you're my family." He didn't answer, but his eyes glistened, and I knew he wanted to believe me. When he stood to go inside, his hand brushed mine for a second. It was small, fleeting, but it was enough to fill the emptiness in my chest. That night, I didn't sleep much. I stayed by the window, watching the city lights fade into dawn. Evan and Leo were here, under the same roof, safe and warm. For the first time in years, I felt peace. But it was also the kind of peace that could shatter with a single wrong move. Still, I promised myself, I wouldn't let them slip away again. Not this time. Days passed faster than I expected. I kept telling myself I was helping Evan only because of Leo, that I was doing what any responsible father would do. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I wanted to be near them, not just to make up for the years I missed, but because being around them made me feel alive again. Evan worked long hours at the hospital, caring for patients and still coming home tired but smiling for Leo. Some nights, I'd see the way his hands shook when he thought no one was watching. He was exhausted, but he never complained. So I started showing up. Every lunch break, I went to the hospital with a small box of food I made myself. At first, he looked shocked to see me waiting in the lobby. "Adrian, what are you doing here?" he asked the first time. "Feeding you," I said simply, handing him the lunch box. "You forget to eat when you work." He blinked at me, torn between anger and confusion. "You cooked." "I'm learning," I said. "For you. For Leo." He didn't say anything after that, but I saw the way his lips curved slightly when he opened the box. That small smile made every burned pancake worth it. At home, Leo clung to me every time I came back from work. He'd shout, "Daddy," and run straight into my arms. I learned to read bedtime stories, make silly voices, and braid his messy curls. Each night ended with his little arms around my neck, whispering, "Don't go to work tomorrow." Every time he said that, my heart melted. I was falling deeper, into fatherhood, into love, into the life I had almost lost. And Evan noticed. He stopped keeping his distance. Sometimes I'd catch him staring when I helped Leo with homework, or when I fixed a broken toy. Once, I looked up and found his eyes on me, soft and unreadable. He quickly looked away, pretending to check his phone, but his face stayed red for a long time. Still, there was something between us we didn't talk about, our past. The hurt, the words we left unsaid. The night I pushed him away for reasons I thought were noble at the time. That night came back to me often. And when the thunderstorm came, I realized I couldn't keep running from it anymore. Rain hammered against the windows, loud and wild. The sky outside was black, streaked with silver lightning. Leo had fallen asleep hours ago, tucked safely in his room. Evan stood by the living room window, his arms crossed, staring out into the storm. The lights flickered once, then again. The air felt thick, heavy, charged with more than just thunder. I stepped closer. You hate storms, don't you? He didn't look at me. Always have. You used to hide under the blanket, I said quietly. You'd say the sky was angry. That made him glance at me, eyes wide. You remember that? I remember everything. The silence stretched between us. The only sound was the rain hitting the glass. His face was soft in the dim light, his lips slightly parted. My chest ached. I wanted to touch him, to say everything I had kept locked inside for years. I thought pushing you away would protect you from my world, I said, my voice trembling. But it only destroyed me. He turned then, eyes shining with tears. You think that makes it better? You broke me, Adrian. You left without a word. I know, I whispered, and I've hated myself every day since. I thought I was doing the right thing. My company was a mess. People were targeting me. I didn't want you or our child in danger. But walking away from you, it was the biggest mistake of my life. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He shook his head, biting his lip to stop it from trembling. You don't get to say that now. I need to, I said, stepping closer. Because if I don't, I'll lose you again. He tried to move back, but I reached out, brushing my fingers against his arm. The touch was soft, careful, like I was afraid he'd vanish if I pressed too hard. Evan, I breathed. I never stopped loving you. His eyes closed, a tear slipping free. Don't, he whispered. Don't say that if you don't mean it. I mean every word. For a long time he didn't move. Then he opened his eyes, and all the anger, all the walls he'd built, seemed to fall away. He looked at me the way he used to, like I was the only thing in the world that made sense. When I reached for him again, he didn't pull away. Our foreheads touched first, a soft bump that made my breath hitch. His hand came up to my chest, feeling the beat of my heart. I could feel his shaking. I was shaking too. Then, slowly, his lips brushed mine. It was soft, so soft I almost thought I imagined it. But then it deepened, desperate and trembling, full of all the words we hadn't said. His tears mixed with mine as he whispered against my mouth. I still love you, Adrian. I felt my chest tighten, my whole world tilt. Then let me prove I deserve you this time, I whispered back. He let out a shaky laugh that sounded like a sob. I held him close, feeling his heart race against mine. The thunder roared outside, but I didn't care. The storm was nothing compared to the one inside us. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in silence and rain. Every touch was a memory. Every breath was forgiveness. We didn't need words anymore. Just the warmth, the closeness, the simple truth that we still belonged to each other. When we finally pulled apart, he was crying quietly, his head against my chest. I'm scared, he said softly. What if it happens again? What if you walk away? I won't, I said, holding him tighter. I've lost enough to know I can't survive losing you twice. Outside, the thunder began to fade. The rain softened to a whisper. Leo stirred once in his room, but didn't wake. Everything around us felt still, peaceful, like even the world was giving us a moment to breathe. Evan sighed, his breath warm against my neck. You make promises so easily, Adrian. Not easily, I said. Only when I mean them. He looked up then, eyes wet but smiling faintly. Then keep this one. I will, I promised. We sat together until the rain stopped. He leaned on me, and I held him close, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing. The world outside was still wet and glowing with city lights. For the first time in 3 years, the silence between us felt right, safe. When he finally fell asleep in my arms, I carried him to his room. I laid him down gently, brushing a strand of hair from his face. His hand caught mine before I could pull away. Stay, he whispered, half asleep. So I did. I stayed beside him, watching the dawn light creep across the floor. For once, there were no lies, no walls, no distance. Only us. And I knew, no matter what came next, I would never let him go again. Morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and golden. The world outside was quiet, washed clean after the storm. I opened my eyes slowly and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Evan lay beside me, still asleep. His hair was a mess across the pillow, and his breathing was soft and even. The faint lines of worry that had always marked his face were gone. He looked younger, calmer, like the man I used to know, the man I'd fallen in love with. For a moment I just watched him. The morning light touched his face gently, making his skin glow. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. He stirred a little but didn't wake. I smiled. He's here. After all the pain, all the nights I spent wishing for one more chance. He was here, beside me. I could still feel the warmth of his hand from last night, the way he held me when the storm faded. The sound of his quiet breathing next to mine felt like home. Then a small voice called out, "Daddy!" Before I could move, the door burst open. Leo came running into the room, his tiny feet padding across the floor. His hair was sticking up in every direction, and he carried his stuffed bear in one arm. He didn't stop at the edge of the bed this time. He climbed straight up and threw himself into my arms. "Daddy!" he said again, louder this time, giggling as I caught him. For a second I couldn't breathe. My arms wrapped around him tightly. The word hit me like sunlight after years of darkness. "Daddy." I laughed and pulled him close, tears burning my eyes. "Hey, little man," I whispered, kissing the top of his head. "You're up early." Evan stirred beside us, blinking awake. When he saw Leo curled up in my arms, his lips curved into a sleepy smile. "You two are loud," he said softly. Leo turned to him, still giggling. "Papa, Daddy said I can play later." Evan sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Did he now?" I grinned. "Well, Daddy's going to keep that promise." Evan's eyes met mine then, and the look we shared said everything words couldn't. There was no anger left, no fear, only warmth, only love. I pulled Leo back a little, looking at both of them. "I missed everything," I said quietly. My voice shook, but I didn't care. His first word, his first steps, his birthday. I missed it all. Evan reached over and took my hand. His touch was gentle, forgiving. "You're here now," he said. "That's what matters." I nodded, blinking back tears. "I'm never missing another day again." Leo wriggled between us, laughing. "Can we have pancakes?" Evan laughed softly. "You heard the boss," he said. I stood up, still carrying Leo. "Pancakes it is." The kitchen was filled with sunlight. Evan stood at the stove while I helped Leo stir the batter in a big bowl. He made a mess. Flour on his cheeks, milk splashed across the counter, but his laughter filled the whole room. When the first pancake hit the pan, Leo clapped his hands. "It smells so good." Evan smiled at him, his eyes shining. "It's your daddy's favorite." I looked at them both and felt my chest tighten. This was everything I'd ever wanted. While we ate, Leo talked about everything. His favorite cartoons, the teddy bear he named Captain Bear, and how he wanted to go to the park later. Evan listened patiently, nodding, his smile never fading. I couldn't stop looking at them, the two people who had changed my world. At one point, Evan caught me staring. "What?" he asked, a soft blush rising on his cheeks. "Nothing," I said, smiling. "Just, I never thought I'd see this. You, him, us." He looked down, hiding his smile behind his coffee cup. "You're getting sentimental." "I think I earned it," I said. Leo laughed suddenly, syrup dripping from his chin. "Daddy's funny." Evan rolled his eyes but couldn't hide his grin. After breakfast, Leo ran to his room to play. The sound of his toys echoed faintly through the hall. Evan began clearing the table, but I stopped him, placing my hand gently on his wrist. "Leave it," I said. He looked at me, confused. "Why?" I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding again, like the first time I'd seen him at the hospital. Because I knew what I needed to do. I walked around the table and knelt down in front of him. His eyes widened. "Adrian," he whispered, his voice unsteady. "What are you doing?" I smiled, though my throat felt tight. "Something I should have done years ago." He stared down at me, his lips trembling as I took his hands. Evan Taylor, I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. Will you and Leo come home, truly, and be my family? For a moment he didn't speak. His eyes filled with tears. Then a small, shaky laugh escaped his lips. Adrian. He knelt down too, right in front of me, his hands still in mine. We already are. I laughed through the tears that slipped down my face. Then I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly. Leo came running into the room again, carrying his bear. Papa! Daddy! He shouted. What are you doing? Evan laughed, wiping his tears quickly. We're hugging, baby. Leo giggled and threw his little arms around both of us. Me too. And just like that, the three of us were tangled together on the kitchen floor, laughing, crying, holding on like the world couldn't touch us anymore. I looked at Evan over Leo's shoulder. His eyes were red, but he was smiling, really smiling. I love you, I said quietly. I love you too, he whispered back. Leo looked between us, confused but happy. Does this mean we're a family now? Evan brushed his hair gently. We always were. Later that afternoon, we went to the park. The sun was bright, and Leo ran ahead, chasing butterflies. Evan sat beside me on the bench, leaning his head against my shoulder. He looks just like you, he said softly. I smiled. Poor kid. Evan laughed quietly, hitting my arm playfully. Don't start. We watched Leo for a while in comfortable silence. His laughter echoed through the park, pure and bright. Adrian, Evan said after a moment. Thank you. For what? For coming back. For not giving up. I turned to him, brushing my thumb against his cheek. I'll never give up again. He smiled, and when he leaned in to kiss me, it felt like the world stopped moving for a heartbeat. It wasn't rushed or desperate like before. It was calm, full of love and promise. When we pulled back, Leo came running toward us, holding a tiny flower. For you, he said proudly, handing it to Evan. Evan took it and smiled, then looked at me. Looks like he's already a heartbreaker. I laughed, pulling them both close. He takes after his papa. As the sun began to set, we walked home together. Leo on my shoulders, Evan holding my hand. The sky was painted orange and pink, and everything felt right. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't haunted by what I'd lost. I was living in what I had found again. When we reached the door, Leo yawned, his small head resting against mine. Evan opened the door and whispered, "Welcome home." I smiled, stepping inside, holding them both close. "We're home," I said quietly. "Forever." Leo giggled sleepily, wrapping his little arms tighter around me. Evan leaned in, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Ours forever." And in that moment, everything, the pain, the waiting, the distance, finally made sense. Because it led us here, together, whole, family at last. Subscribe and comment below if you believe love always finds its way back. What would you do if your ex came back saying, "You had my child"? Don't miss the next story, only on Cherry Boy Heart.